what I like to do with a church is always put first just a straight line down. Now you could use a ruler on this if you wanted to. I usually don't use a ruler, but that's acceptable. Now, steeples are always equal distance on either side. Perspective can sometimes really screw you up on that note. Let's see. Come on down here. It does some funny architectural stuff, which I really, you know what, I'm just sort of indicating on my sketch because I don't want to get into that detail and on an object or subject that's so far away. That comes over here too. Oh, I'm going too far, too fast. No, I'm up here. There we go. Okay, then there's a whole. Excuse me. I'm just going to blow my image up on my iPad here. Oop, no, come back. There we go. So I can see it a little better. Let's come down here. This will speed up in a minute. Okay, just getting a shape that I feel comfortable. So, small window up there, and then there are two. Always keeping perspective, this line actually goes off to the horizon way, way out. This one will be the opposite, go the other way. What I'm trying to do here. All right, we're going to begin with the sky. I'm going to use a mop brush, new mop brush. I try to keep my skies light. When I first started painting, especially in watercolor, I used to make my skies very dark, like ultramarine, and it's way too heavy. So I'm gonna, and this is a very warm spring sky, so I'm gonna use some raw sienna and a little bit of cerulean blue. We're just gonna get the sky in, get it a little yellower towards the horizon. We come down here. Now as you see, I'm going right over the buildings, but it doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, in watercolor you always want to get that first wash in with your brights. There's a yellow, nice, warm streak of light that's going to come across the street here. One back there too. We have a nice yellow taxi cab, so I want to just put some color in on that. And for the base of the buildings, base meaning the initial wash, I'm just going to put a light blue, maybe a little towards the purple side. Actually on this building right here. These washes, although they look strong at the moment, boy, they'll be almost insignificant as we start in on our midtones and our darks. Right now, I'm following my value sketch in that I just want to make sure I've placed where those light washes will be. I'm going to put this yellow up a little higher, which is actually, we can go over the whole road anyway because has a nice warm tone to it. I'm going to come down on a building on this side over here with again that sort of that purple color. Again, that first initial wash. And let's finish off this street down here with a little bit cooler, a little bluer. This is a new mop brush for me. It's a Da Vinci and it's partially synthetic. I had an Isabey, which is right here, which I've used for years. But it's natural hair. It's very soft, which is nice. But I like the stiffness of the mixture. Okay, all right. That's a good initial first wash, which now we need to let dry. So I'm gonna stop the cameras for a minute. Okay, it's feeling pretty good right now. And I'm going to start with these background buildings anyway, so even if they drift into some of that sky, there's no problem there. Clean off the palette. I want to keep these background buildings fairly blue, cool for being in the background. I'm going to use some cobalt blue and some burnt sienna. This gives a nice neutral blue. Let's get a little more to the blue side there. Okay, neutral gray I meant. I'm going to start with this building right here. And just for interest, I'm going to warm it up just a smidgen right through here with some more burnt sienna. May have gotten a little too brown, but I'm going to leave it that way for now. also just some dark windows in there that I don't really want to focus too much on them, but let's just, while it's wet too, they'll just spread out. Just put something in like this. That's fine, good. Okay, I'm just going to move my way over to here. Some of those buildings have a little more red in them. Even though they're in the background, we can turn them onto the purple side. A little rose madder with some cobalt. I'm going to come right up to the edge of the cathedral here. Grace Church. And let's blue that down with the color blue. Let's gradate that. It's not quite so red. I have a tripod holding up my phone to photograph the my palette for you, and I'm not used to working around the legs of the tripod. There's a banner right here. I'm sort of going around. It's a red banner, and I want to preserve that. That's when I do detailed drawings and backgrounds and stuff, or things that I want to remember. Which is great. I can't remember anything, but I'll try to remember that. Alright, next I'm going to work over here. These buildings are a little lighter and a little warmer too. They're more like almost like a yellowy brick. So I'm going to start with the with a warmer color, but then I'm going to add a little bit of cobalt to them just to knock it down. Oh yeah, that's a nice color. I like that for that building. And here, and then we're gonna again cool it down as we move towards the street, which we will put some dark junk all over there to blend that together. I'm going to come right down to the street level there. Because I've done my value sketch, I know that the people and the details in front of these background buildings will be darker. So I'm not worried about painting them around them to preserve any brightness. We'll go back later and put white gouache for some highlights. I heard years ago, maybe it was Al Albrechtsen, maybe Mel Stabin, I don't know, one of the really professional watercolorists talking about, oh look at, I put my hand all through that, it doesn't matter. Talking about trying to do one wash instead of going around things, which is really important. Try to do a whole wash. You can go back later and correct it. And I believe that's quite true. I'm going to finish this building over here before I do the church steeple. This building was kind of dark, which is nice because it sets the steeple off. The steeple being a little bit lighter. I'm going to make it on the bluey purple side. Looks like it's a sort of similar. It may actually be the same building or parts of the same building there. Let's see. Make sure my head's not in your... Oh good, I don't think it is. I'm going to come down to the church roof right here. rest of the church, which has a, you know, a patinaed copper roof. It's kind of green, which we'll put in. We'll put that in. We'll put it in right now. What the heck? For that, I'm going to use some leaf green, a wonderful green color. But I'm going to knock it down with some. Ooh, that's cerulean. Cerulean and leaf green become pretty bright. So let's keep it that way and add just a touch of red to it. There, and that just calmed it down. Turned it to the gray side, which is a little better for this patinaed green roof. Just gonna blue it up a little right there. Okay, let's get that steeple going now. I'll clean my palette. This, by the way, this palette, for those who know me, already know this, but I'll tell you anyway. This is from Cheap Joe's. It's a porcelain butcher block. And I really like it. I like it because I can pull my colors in. I don't have to dip them into a well and then blop them into the middle here or into any of the wells on some of the other palettes. This is really cool. I can just slide them in and move them around. I find it to be a great palette. Okay, I'm going to start with burnt sienna for this church steeple. It's a little dark on the top and then it gets light as it comes down. I'm going to add ultramarine to it. It's just pretty dark. And then I'm going to add some raw sienna. There we go. And it's alright if it's dark on the top. Now my paintbrushes have good points on them, so I can do the little, you know, there's probably a cross or something up in here. It doesn't matter, we just want to put a little detail, if you will, as it comes down. But now I want to lighten that up. So I'm going to add more water and go into that yellower section. It's too dark still. Just water. This side is the light side right here where the sun is hitting. This side is the dark side, the left side, which I'll add some blue in a minute. I'm just coming down the church steeple. I'm looking at my image as well as my pencil lines that I sort of my guidelines that I've put on here. It's very intricate architecture. We don't have to be that detailed with it. I mean, you can if you want to, but I'm not going to be that detailed. It looks like I'm not even here. I'm going to just pull this out a little right like that. Again, it comes to that original line I told you about when you're drawing steeple. Balances on either side of that line. I'm going to get some dark ready for those details. It's very wet right now. It's too wet to get in there. But I will, while it's wet, I will put the shadow side on. Get some blue. All right, and we'll put some detail in there in a minute. Let's continue on down the church steeple. Keep it in perspective, Bill. fun as it comes down here. It's because it's nice and light, where the sun is just starting to hit it right in this section right there. That's cool. A little blue around the other side where it's in shade, so we'll change that. We'll add a little blue to it as we come down. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, I'm just looking at the wetness of that paper, making sure I don't miss an opportunity to get some detail in without making it really too distinct. I don't want the paper to get too dry, or I'll miss that opportunity. Let me just pull this down right now just quickly, and then I'm going to get in there with that, with some of those details. Alright, so I'm going to go to ultramarine and just mix the ultramarine into what I'm already using, just to get it a little darker. That's all I really want to do. There's some little doodads all over the architecture. There's a sort of a break up here. See how now the paper's damp, so it's blending, and that's great. That's exactly what I want. I don't want those hard lines up in there. This is too wet in here. I've got to wait. That line might be a little. I'm just gonna, with a damp brush, no color, I'm just gonna soften that edge right there. Okay. While I'm waiting for this to dry, I'll pull out the rest of that. Get back to my raw sienna, burnt umber. A little bit of ultramarine blue. We definitely want to go more on the blue side as it comes down towards the street, because it's sort of in shadow anyway, so I'm going to just add that on. And it's in shadow of all the junk all over the, the shadows that are being cast onto the building right now. Now see, I just went right across our hero, who was smack in the middle. Nice composition. But I'm not worried about that, because we're going to darken her up, and then we'll hit her with some white gouache to make her look like she's in the sunlight as she's crossing the street there. Good. All right. This forms a great shape in the sky. Very interesting, which I like. I love church steeples and buildings that break up any kind of sky. And then, of course, we'll have our street light, which I'm going to move for this painting, because it's kind of, I think I'll move it. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll leave it where it is, in the photo, that is. Okay, how are we doing up here? Oh, good. That's getting better. Just some notes of detail that the viewer's eye will connect and figure it out. We don't have to be literal, especially with something this far away. I am gonna come back and hit those windows, those beautiful church windows, a little better than that. But we'll give them their detail there, and then there's a bunch of stuff over here. And lots of architectural details, which again we're not going to get into. We're just going to indicate. This is a little wet down in here. Here. come back at this with some darker values in just a second. Everything there is just a bit too wet. While I'm waiting for that, I'm going to put some cerulean, as if some of the windows on this apartment building over here, or condos, or whatever they are reflecting the sky. So I'm not concerned about where they are, and all I'm concerned about is following my perspective lines. And we'll pick and choose what we want. We'll work around those. So when I put my darks in for this building, these windows will, if I do it right, the windows will they'll just pop out, which will be great. Okay, that's enough on that. This is still a bit wet. Just for fun, we'll put in that red banner while I'm right here. I'm going to use alizarin crimson. Actually, that's a pretty good. Nah, it's getting too bright. It's in shade, so I don't want it too bright anyway. So I'm going to add a little cobalt to it just to make it, knock it down a little more purple. Yeah, that's fine right there, like that. Sorry, my head's in the way.
Do you want to pause for a second,
Looks like
Bill?
a hole right now, but when we and that's around it, I think it will.
I think we're about at a third of the way. Does anyone have any questions for Bill? And don't forget you're muted if you're muted.
I can save them until the end.
Okay.
I'm writing my notes.
Okay.
And anyone else have any questions? No? Okay.
I do apologize. My head does get in the way a couple of times, but it shouldn't affect too much what you see. And the only other thing I want to say is it's agony watching yourself paint and talk. I'm just like, oh my gosh. Anyway, here we go.
Work well. I'm going to get that red out of there. Okay. Okay, this is dried off pretty nicely. I went across to the house and got a cup of coffee, which I never do, but while I was waiting for that to dry. All right, so I'm just going to add just a smidgen of detail with some darker colors. Following these windows. Yeah, believe it or not, it still is a bit damp. The weather is not conducive today to drawing. It's cold and damp. Let's see there. Oops, well, I didn't mean to do that, but we'll take advantage of it. We'll put in some of these details in here. There's all these little windows in the church and little architectural you've probably noticed I'm not getting all hung up in exactly what they're supposed to be and where they are and all the detail you could get into for a couple of reasons. One is it's still quite a bit away from where we are standing on the street here. But the other thing is that we're going to have other things. There are some trees and people and stuff, and those will take up a lot of the attention. So this is really just background in through here. I'm going to put a line across there, one there. Something crazy in these. I don't know what it is. It's like a big, oh, I see. It's a different facade of the church, I guess, where people go in, or a door or something. I'll just do that. Indicate that there's something going on there. Also in here too, just some. Okay, fine. All right, that's good. I like that. That's great. This is quite dark, so I'm not going to that one yet. I'm going to go over and do this building. This building is looks like a light tan building, but it's reflecting a lot of the sky. There's a lot of cerulean in that. So I'm going to get a bigger brush, and I'm going to, oh, by the way, on brushes, these are the mop I use for the big washes. Now I'm on to more finer brushes. This I really do use. I'm trying to see if hopefully that's in the camera. This is an Escoda Perla. They're synthetic brushes. This is a 16, but they come to very nice points. Although this point is not as good as the one I was just using. That's an amazing point. Look at that. That is beautiful. That's where you can get these nice little details. Once the points are gone, the brushes really are toast. However, to do this building, I'll be fine, and I just ordered a new 16 from Blix. Okay, so I said cerulean. So I'm going to get that cerulean in here. Then I'm going to do burnt sienna. To that burnt sienna, I'm going to add a little cobalt because it's just a little too brown. Yeah, that's getting a little better. All right, now let's put it with the. Yeah, that's the shade. That's what I'm looking for. Okay. Now in my value sketch, it's pretty dark. I need to get it darker than that. So I'm going to probably let's move all that color up here. Add a little more cerulean to it. That's a pretty good shade. Let's see what happens. It's lighter on the top anyway. It's lighter up here. It's darker as it comes down. Touch of water. Here we go. I am saving some of those windows. Yet I'm also trying to keep this as a fluid wash, so it's quite wet. To the next layer of story of windows. We don't want to put in every window. If you start putting in every window, that's what you'll look at in the painting. It's like the window and how many are there, and are they right, or are they offset, or what's going on. I mean, that's not the detail you want to look at. The detail is going to be down in here. So this just sets the stage, sets the tone of our play in New York City. Alright, now I want to get this as we move down. Oh, you know what? This building has these funky little porches out on the side, which are kind of cool. I like those because again, it adds something to that sky shape. Alright. My color's getting too light already. I've put too much water, so I'm just going to mix up a little more. Cerulean. But I'm going to go back and get more cobalt because it is getting bluer and darker as it comes down. Yeah, let's maybe a little too dark, but that's okay. I know when I put these windows in, I told you I wasn't sure what I was going to use, but I'm actually just using them all right now as sort of a guide. You can always get rid of them later if we want to. Just making sure I'm on record, that would be great. I forgot to push the button. Okay. Again, I've added too much water. It's getting too light. Gotta get more paint in there. One reason I didn't mention about this palette that I really enjoy is that when I'm done, I take my sponge and I get it nice and wet. Sorry, I just want to see what that color is. I get my sponge nice and wet, put it right smack in the middle of my palette, and then I put a piece of, well, like a press and seal. It is called press and seal, or you know, saran wrap, or anything like that, right over the whole palette, and it keeps my paints ready to go for a long time. I think I've tested it out to about a month or two when I hadn't been in my palette, and I went back to it and they were still fresh as can be. Okay, we don't have to worry about the windows down in here because if we put any in, they're darker, then they're not reflecting the sky anymore. So I'm just adding more pigment to my color. Yeah, that's great. That's good. Actually, as those windows come down, they start to reflect other things, but I'm not going to get into that. The painting is not about that. So we'll just come down here. Unless, of course, I was commissioned to do this apartment building, then we'd have a different slant to this painting, wouldn't we? Alright, now as I come down to the taxi cab, I am going to be a little more careful of that. I'm going to just work around it a bit. I don't want to have to use total opaque colors to get the taxi cab back. Probably, according to my value sketch, this should be darker, but I think we're gonna leave that alone. We can always make it darker if we need to, but I can also go in and add just a few darks into the windows and maybe under those balconies there, and yeah, let's leave it like that. When I squint at my painting, this is a pretty dark shape, but when I look at my value sketch, I had it much darker. So we're kind of balancing. Let's get this building in. This building's very dark. It also has a kind of a brick cast to it, so I'm going to put my water there. Yeah. Hey, again, I'm working around this tripod, and that smooth with it. Someday, when we're through all this, we can have I'll do a live demo for you. It's much more fun. You can see it so much better too. I know I saw Jonathan McPhillips. I saw his demo he did for you last month. He did such a great job. He's an amazing guy. And I think he feels the same way. It'd be nice to be able to just be together and see this. This color may be too. Oh, it's pretty cool. I mean, cool meaning I like it, but I'm going to make it a little cooler, meaning bluer. Hold on. I'm adding ultramarine to this alizarin crimson that I had going, and I'm going to add a little bit of that burnt sienna just to knock it down. You know what else would knock it down nicely is a little bit of that perline green. Yeah, there we go. I always have a piece of paper, scrap piece of paper. You can always test the color before you actually go for it. Oh yeah. Oh, that's nice. All right, let's just come right down this edge. I usually paint standing up as well. I am standing now. I find it much freer. I can move my arms around. I can step back right away. When I sit, I tend to feel as though I'm more stagnant. Sometimes you can't help it though. I just need to sit. I was out with my grandson painting, and so he was sitting. I was sitting with him. It was fun. What a joy! What a pleasure that was, man. He's 5, and he asked me if I would take him out painting. Oh, melt my heart. Okay, let's come right down here. Now I've got a gentleman right in here, but I'm not worried about him. He's going to be darker than this wall. So let's just pull this wall right down, right over him. And it kind of finishes off right here. It's not real detailed in my photo, and I don't really need to. Pretty much right there. This street comes right across in here, so you can bring it down a little bit more than that. Let's just make sure it's straight too. Cool. All right. I'm going to get some tone in on the roads. We also have an awning right here. I'll let this dry. That awning's going to be darker than this, so we'll put that in a second. This color is too red. I'm going to get rid of that for the street. Oops. And I want to go back to actually, I'm going to go back to my mop for this. I'm going to use cobalt. You have to be careful. These mops hold a lot of water, and it can get you in trouble. You can get a lot of blossoming going on. Blossoming in watercolor, for those of you who don't watercolor, a blossom is when you have a wet surface and you add more color to it, but the color is too wet and it just blossoms right into that wet paper you already have. Okay, what am I doing? A blue. Let's add some rose madder, get a little more on the purple side. And what happens if I put some yellow in there? Oh, that's a nice color. Now there's a nice streak of light back in there too, so I want to preserve that. Let's just put this in along here first, then that streak of light, then we'll come along. I'll work around my car. Now I'm going to to be very mindful right now because I do not want to lose this nice streak of sunlight coming across here. If I lose that, I've lost the painting. So I'm going to just be careful. Okay. Now you can see that that shape, that sunlight is coming in. I'm a little thinner right there. This road is going to be darker in the sidewalk as well, but I'm going to warm it up a bit too. I'm going to add more burnt sienna as it comes down towards us. Actually creating a bead. A bead is when you're working vertically. I'm standing. You put your wash on and it forms this dark edge right here. That's called a bead, which is really fun because you can keep moving that bead down. See how it just all collapses down to that, right to the edge, and forms nice gradations. Go right to the bottom. Cool. All right. Okay. Doesn't this look really dark right now? Sure does. It won't later, but it does right now. Whew. Doesn't matter. I may go back and darken some of those backgrounds in there. They're a little light. I kind of want the church to come forward, which should be maybe a little lighter because the light's hitting it. Yeah, I think we'll do that. Let's just go in and do that right now. I'm going to use that same street color I was just using. It's a nice color. Go right over all of this. You know what? I don't need to work around that. That's going to be very dark. Too, yeah. See how now the church steeple all of a sudden will start to come forward? And I'm going to drop in a bit of that same. It's wet, so it's just falling down. Great. This is a little isolated here. Let's just pretend like there's another roof coming along here or something, because that's just a little too much. Okay. All right. I'm just stepping back and looking at where I need to go next. The shadows from these buildings will need to be darker. This is a good first wash on them. We're going to have to go on them one more time. Okay, let's do that. I've got that color already out because it's the same thing we've been using. I'm just going to add more to it. I'm going to add cobalt, burnt sienna. No, stop. I don't want that. Let's clean that off. want it to be a very blue, more blue than that. Let's do ultramarine. Ultramarine, a little bit of burnt sienna, some alizarin crimson. That's a good, yeah, that's nice. Be mindful of that taxi cab. Let's add a little streak back in here. Oh, I hope my head's not in the way. Actually, we could dry brush it a little. See that dry brush leaves a few holes here and there. That's a nice touch. Lets the viewer make up the. Now there's a curb here, and I think we'll just go like this and let the sidewalk be a little bit lighter. Yeah, if I don't screw it up. Let's get this darker here too. I'm going to need a bigger brush. And I need to add more paint. Ultra. Alizarin. Gorgeous purple. Woo, too much. More blue. Good, and a little bit of burnt sienna. I am going to take a different brush, wet it, and just soften this edge right here. Like that, because the shadow of some building way over there casting this is so far away that it wouldn't be that hard edged. You know what? This is very red. So I'm going to add a little bit of red into this too. Just to tie the two together. Oh, you know what? It's hard to see, but there is a curb here, which would change. So what we do is we come across like this, and then drop it down on the curb and then over. Running out of paint. Nice thing about that mop I was using is it holds so much paint. It's really easy to do that that bead I was just telling you about. Okay, while this is wet, I'm going to take a square brush, like this one. I'm going to wet it, just clear water, and we're going to put in where the curb is right here. I'm just dragging it through the wet paint. Up over here too. Let's leave it like that for now. All right. I'm gonna put in, I'm just gonna let this dry, and then we're gonna put in the taxi cab, and then we're gonna start putting all these little details in. Oh, but you know what, while this is drying, let's put in that awning. It'll be very, very thick paint. Ultramarine, very dark, almost black. Some of that perline green, maybe this could be a green awning anyway. But it's in the shade, and it's New York, and it's dark, and we're not too worried about it. I'm probably going to get a line right there on that, where that burgundy building is in the shade. And I didn't. I left it. I'm just going over this just to try to see if I can blend that burgundy color into this green, and that way it will, yeah, hopefully it'll dry back. Okay. All right, now we'll go over to that taxi cab. Usually I always start with windows, because windows really help define a car, especially the windshield. And I usually make them dark, and I think I will do that here. Actually, I'm going to start, believe it or not, I'm going to start with cerulean, as it's reflecting the sky. Right here, like this. So we get in that shape of the front windshield. All right, I'm going to come back with dark in 2 seconds, so bear with me here. The side windows. Now, I'm going to make that nice thick dark. Thick meaning thick in pigment, not a lot of water, more paint, more like butter. Yeah, there we go. All right. This taxi cab is very yellow. I'm going to do my, actually I'm going to add, I'm sorry, I'm using my raw sienna, but I'm going to add cadmium yellow to it. Not for the top surface, but for everywhere it's got shadow on it. Yeah. So that'll be in light, but then as we come down here in the cab, it's got okay, now it's going to be the darks that are really going to make that into a cab, and you're going to see that in a minute, but I have to let that dry. The other thing is I need to give this top sign some dimension. It has a front sort of front part here. And then has obviously some kind of writing on the side, which we don't put in, we just put in, indicate some sort of something along there, like that. All right, when this dries, I'm going to turn, then I'll really make that into hopefully a better looking car than it is right now. All right, while that's drying, we can put in some trees and some junk in the background. This was early spring, so the leaves were not out yet. Now we're getting into this, as I just said a minute ago, we're getting into this very thick paint. It's all thick. Another tree, let's see, let's put it right here. I've been watching Andy Evenson do his trees. Andy Evenson is out in the Midwest, amazing watercolorist. And I love how he does branches in the wintertime. And I'm going to show you that in 2 seconds. He doesn't paint every branch. Instead, he dry brushes them using the edge of his brush. I always have a hard time getting my hand in there the way I want it. That's too much. Hold on. I'm too wet. I gotta be a little drier. I did it here fine. There we go. The dry brush, this is cold press paper, Arches, 300 pound. So the dry brush is just picking up the texture of the paper. It's much easier to do on rough, because you know rough watercolor paper has that really rigid bump. So again, I'm using just the side of the brush and trying to put in those branches. Okay, there's also a lot of just stuff over here. Shapes and actually the building actually has something going on. Let's blue that up a bit. Huh. Blue meaning cool. All right. Let's get some over here too. There's another tree right over here. I'm just putting in stuff back here. And we don't know what it is. Could be people, could be signs, just junk. All right, let's finish this car. That, oh, doesn't matter. I had dark paint on my hand. Again, going back to real thick paint. Get very dark tires in. Tire right there. Other thing about cars is that the shadows underneath them are extremely dark because the car has such a thick, you know, it doesn't let any light in, so we're just gonna put in some shadow here underneath that car. I think it says taxi or something on it. And we got headlights in here and stuff, which we can put on later if we want. Okay, and a plate. All right, good enough for the taxi cab. This building got awfully light, didn't it? Let's put some darks in around those windows. Maybe that'll help. It has that feature anyway. Some of these windows are more like, you know, and they have these whatever. Without getting too detailed. That might just help it. And under these patios. And as it gets down here, these windows get darker anyway, but that are under here. All right, let's leave that alone. Sometimes it's good to step away and take a glance. This part of the church right here needs to be darker. It will help give it volume, and I'll try to help separate it from this part right here. So I'm just going to go ahead. I've got color already mixed. That's just neutral stuff. That's just fine. I'm going to go bottom up too, and for a change, I'm going to go this way. Yeah. Here, I think that will just help soften that as it comes up a little more. Let's also give that a better edge right here. Okay, I think that's better. Yeah, I think that'll work better. All right, time to put some people in. So start with our hero. Right there in the crosswalk in that bright red. Okay, I'm going to do that. One more quick thing, sorry. It's just this side of the cab needs to be toned down. Okay, that's better. I just put a cobalt wash over that. All right, I'm going to start with their head. So I'm going to use just a blop of burnt sienna. Let's see, I think I had drawn her right here. I think I'm going to move her up over to here. And her head's got to be in line with us, which is right there, so. Actually, let's move her even over closer to here as she's crossing the street. All right, there's her head. She has a red jacket on. I'm going to use alizarin crimson right now to make her jacket. And I'm saying that because I'm going to probably come back and hit it with cadmium red where the sunlight's hitting it. So she's walking forward. Okay. Arm back, has a coat on. Carrying a bag or something. We'll have her carrying a bag or something. I've heard many artists say you can never make a head too small, which sounds so funny. But if your heads get big, they don't look, they look like children or they look like Martians. So you have to be very careful. All right, she's got a skirt on. Also going to, right now, while that's nice and wet, that red is wet, I'm going to get some shadow on the back side here. And I'm going to put her legs in with, well, at least one leg in with, just for now I'm going to do the burnt sienna. Here's her head. We have something there, and she's walking forward. Back leg. Not worried about putting your back leg in. Then another tip is that a lot of artists don't put in both legs, just put in one leg, which sounds crazy. All right, so she's carrying something there. All right, and then what we'll do is we'll go back and hit her with highlights and reds and stuff. If you put in both legs, they won't look like they're walking. It's just a crazy thing. All right, now I'm just going to put in a bunch of people in the background before we put our other heroes in. She's the main hero, but before we put our other people in. Alright, so let's have some people on the other side of the street. Two people walking here. Another one up here. We'll pretend like there's some people way back here walking. Another head here, head here, head there. So these shapes read as people. They're really not anything too elaborate. I don't think anyone carries briefcases anymore, but I'm putting them in anyway. Boom, there goes my easel. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. And how about some more? Ooh, I got their heads a little low there. Well, I gotta pull them up a bit. Okay, that's better. It's more people way back here. I mean, it's New York City. There are people everywhere all the time. It's crazy. Let's get our guy in over here. I usually always start ahead with this burnt sienna. Just get the head in and get the clothes in around him. All these people over here are in shadow, so I'm making them relatively dark. I think I'm going to want him a little bigger because I want his feet down here. I don't want him in the... well, he could be there. Hey, well, come on. Let's give it a try. Let's see what happens. All right. He's got a... and one leg. And he's got to be carrying something. I don't know what. Tool case or something. I don't know. Who knows? We'll give him a we'll give him a shadow. I don't know if I want him in the light though. Shoot, because I want her to stand out. This comes with planning. See, I've got him. Okay, I gotta make him bigger. Sorry, I'm jumping around. I was looking at my sketch, and I have him. His feet should be here. So I need to make him just a smidge bigger. So I am going to make his head a little bigger, and I'm going to make his body Hunchback of Notre Dame at the moment. That's all right. We can fix that. When I put a little highlight of white on, well, let's put his hair in here. We can make his head a little bit bigger than that. Whoops. Could also give him a hat. It won't be our main focus anyway. I have my other guy right here. And he's got a t-shirt on, looks like. I'm gonna make it as if he's wearing a red jacket. again, he's in shadow, so. And he's holding that cup of coffee. That might be a little tricky. Hand in his pocket. Cup of coffee there. Put him in some blue jeans, which again is just dark. Come back and give him some detail later. I'll put another guy right there. I'm going into my lavender, and I'm gonna, which is opaque, and I'm just gonna give this guy as if, well, his jacket is open, so I'm just gonna accentuate that right now. Okay, now I'm gonna go, I got this guy going, and I'm gonna put him in kind of a lighter bluish. It has to be darker than that. We're gonna see him. A little skinny there, huh? Okay, I'm gonna give him a backpack when he's dries off a little bit more. Okay, before I put in my highlights, I'm gonna put in that street light. It's really, I don't want it to come up. I drew it in my sketch over here. I don't think that's gonna make any sense. It really is right there, but yeah, no, I guess I will put it over here after all. I gotta be very careful not to go right through my people here. You know what? I think I better wait till they dry, and then so give me just a couple of minutes when they're dry, and then I can get in my street poles and stuff. Well, I can put in the top part. We're gonna put it in right here, And it just this arc with the street light up over here. And then it comes down, does a little, has a little like fitting here that holds it all together, and then it comes straight down, but I'm going to go right through those people. Well, let's give it a try. If I put my finger over here, I think I can do it. Okay, here we go. Yeah, okay, got it. Then off of this is a stoplight, which we're going to need to put some highlights on, but let's put it in anyway. Off like this. This is the magic stuff. This is the calligraphy. This is the fun of watercolor. It's when you get into this junk. I'm going to put the stoplight in, but I'm going to use cadmium yellow. A little bit of cadmium red. Stoplights in New York City are yellow, and that's the kind of stuff you have to pay attention to, because if someone wants to buy your painting because they remember the, you know, Broadway and stuff, but they'll know that street lights, it's gonna have to be thicker than that. Hold on, sorry, my cadmium is a little dried up. Okay, here we go. They know that the street lights are yellow, so I wouldn't want to put in black street lights. Traffic signals is what I'm not saying, but what I mean. Now, right now you cannot see them. I mean, they're not really identifiable, but we'll put in some marks on them later when they dry that will make them a little easier to see. There's another one over here. You know what? I'm not going to worry about that one. There are some sidewalk, you know, street crossing things right here. Let's put those like that for now. And again, we're going to go back into those and get them. And you know what? This taxi cab has that same color. So I'm just going to put a little bit more in here. Great. Probably going to end up cropping. Just the wonderful thing about watercolor is that we can crop, unlike oil painters. I can probably come up on it like that, which would make it a little more. This kind of is dead space right here. I can put some calligraphy in for the sidewalk and junk like that, which we will do, but it is kind of dull there. So, all right. Let's get a shadow in on our walker. I use cobalt, alizarin, warm light, cool shadows. I don't want it to be just blue, so I'm going to add a little burnt sienna to it, because then it will just knock it down. So this is our walker right here. And that nice long light. I'm also, even though these guys are in shadow, I'm going to give them a little bit of something to ground them. The car, I didn't put a curb in over here. I don't know what that is. I'm just putting something in to break up that building. All right. I'm going to, let's give that guy his backpack that he needs. It's over his shoulder right here. That guy has this cup of coffee, which I forgot to get in. We'll have to put that in with white. I also told you that I would put on her some brights where the sun's hitting her, some bright reds. That. The stoplights are facing the wrong way, so we can't really. But you know what we can do? We can just put some red marks around. Just helps put junk in the city. That's probably a little too big. I'm not worried about it. All right, some whites. Titanium white gouache. And we'll start up here on the stoplight. This pole actually has, I'm not going to go, we're not going to fall for that trap. It has light on it, but we're not going to do that. Let's just put a little bit of light on some of these figures here. Their shoulders, tops of their heads.
Get out of the way.
This is my coffee cup here, which looks like a blob of white. But this is really wanted is on her. Because she is in the light, so there. So that sort of pulls her out of there a little bit more. Okay. I've looked at my painting and it's too clean and pristine. It needs to be grittier. So I need to put some stuff in the back. Herman Peckel, one of my favorite watercolor artists, he's very funny about this. He'll say, you have to get mad. And it's just what I need to do. I need to get mad. It's just too, yeah, see, it needs that kind of stuff, yeah. And let's just warm it up a bit too. It's a little... Don't be afraid to use your finger. That's better. Then on the street, I was looking at this too. This is just so too pristine. We gotta just kind of even a dry brush, if you will. Just a, yeah, that's what it needs. It's just too pretty for New York City. I told you that I may put some calligraphy in for the sidewalk marks. So that's just you know, that's this kind of stuff in perspective. It's kind of, I think I want to put something in for this curb too. There we go. And I am going to put some white on that traffic light pole. It's just too blah sitting up there. It should have had a loft and a found edge. I use a particular brush for my gouache. It's just this old crappy brush, I think from Cheap Joe's. I did forget to put the headlights in. Do that. I'm going to just put a little highlight like that. I think that just helps it a bit on these. And just a couple of couple of marks of just something. Just a little too bland. And that's it. I think I'm done. I thank you all very much for watching, for attending the Blackstone Valley Art Association, inviting me to come along. I will put my signature on here so you can watch that too, which is a big deal. But you know what? It is a big deal. That's one of my lectures. I've seen signatures that absolutely ruin a painting. So you really need to focus on your signature. It's got to be you, but it's got to be done well. I am probably going to crop up on this. I have croppers, but you know what? I'll just get a scrap piece of board. Probably going to come up on this like this. So I'm going to sign my name right here. A little more water. This is probably the hardest thing. I always sign the B lane. It doesn't even have to be readable. And I usually use red, but I'm starting to change that too. I'm moving around to different colors that complement the painting a little better. However, I think the red complements this painting. So again, thank you very much. And that was fun.
Okay.
I have questions. So when you were starting out and roughing in with pencil, you're using a mechanical pencil?
Yes.
And what lead are you using? What kind of?
I believe it's HB.
HB, that's what I was thinking. Okay.
It's a 7mm, which doesn't really mean anything, but I really like those mechanical pencils. They I don't have to sharpen them. They just work really well. The other thing I've been trying to do is not draw quite as much. If I'm doing a nature scene like a marsh or something, I draw very little. I just want to give myself guides. When it comes to a city or buildings, I got to get the perspective right. So that takes a little more drawing. But anyway, sorry. That your question, yeah, it's a mechanical pencil, and they're really neat. They're really fun to use. So.
And you said you used the 300-pound arches cold press?
I do.
Okay.
I've been using 140 rough lately too for a few things, and it's working really well. I like it. I don't stretch it. I don't do anything to it. I just paint as it is. So yes.
And a question, Bill, when you talk about adding the gouache for the white highlights, if you were to enter that in competition, is that still considered watercolor, or is it now mixed media?
No, it's still watercolor. First of all, gouache is a water-based paint, so
With chalk in it, yeah.
Yep, and it goes back to the what I was initially saying about washes and get that whole wash in. And I've had well, I used to do this, but I've also had students who will put in a sky but go around a telephone pole, and the sky gets real chunky. So it's better to just do the sky and then do the telephone pole after it dries, whether it's dark or you use a gouache and it's light. You know, I've never had trouble with using gouache in any art competitions. I've looked at American watercolor. They use, you know, it's not an issue. So,
Okay.
Singer Sargent used it. You know, it goes
Over.
back. So yeah, I'm not. Yeah, whatever. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It's funny now that I look at this painting. Oh man, there are a million things I still need to do to it. But in any event, yeah, it's fun.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Well, there must be more questions. Who else has questions?
No, there's no questions, but it's really nice to see a demo from beginning to end. So often you can go to a workshop and you see a demo. Oh, got you started, got you halfway in. Okay, go ahead and work. And you never really see someone totally bring it close to the end or complete. Like you say, you have a little more work, but I mean, this was fantastic.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. When my easel fell during the demo, I was going to edit that out, and I said, leave it. It's good to see stuff like that. You know, it's nice to know that accidents happen, and you just keep moving along with it. What the heck, you know? So
Right. Even with your man you did that, you said he was too small. It was nice to see you say, okay, proportion was off. I'll just go right over it and do it. So it, you know, so often we think we ruin something by, oh, it's not right, so can't keep it. But
you know, interesting observation. And as I look at that guy still is like, bah, but he's not really the focus. He just adds more interest to the painting or to the scene.
Right.
So, you know, the other funny note is that what I mentioned during the video about not putting both legs in. If you look at more watercolors of city scenes, you'll see that. You'll see those really good painters who don't put in both legs because it gives the illusion that they're moving. So it's funny.
And no shoes.
Yeah, yeah, no feet, because then that gets real clunky when you start doing that. If you said,
okay.
you can see can you see if I put a foot in here, oh boy, it's just a little too much. So anyway.
I noticed you did the center of interest where the taxi and the lady, you know, kind of about in the middle of the composition. Do you usually do that?
No, I goof that. You know, I really am adamant about the thirds, and you know, rules are meant to be broken, but we need some guidelines. So I try to have them in the right place and try to lead the viewer's eye to it. But as I went along, actually, as I started, I'm sorry, I'm pointing, but you can't see that.
Well, we can see your mouse.
You see my mouse?
Yeah, we could see your mouse.
So there is pencil line right here. So I had her drawn right here and went, oh man, she's smack in the middle. No, that's why I moved her over at least to here. So
okay.
Anyway, yeah. The other thing I was looking at is that these two guys, they should be connected because it's really important to connect shapes instead of everything isolated. Another thing is I was drawing, I like this guy that I had drawn here, and then I put that pole right smack through him. So I'm like, oh, well, you know, what do you do? So
what? Yeah.
It's the base now of the light.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's posters on there or something like that. So, funny, yeah. But this is a neat scene. We were in New York a few years ago, and I took this picture. I've done this a couple of times, and there's something about that church with the other rectangle buildings that really work nicely. I like this scene. So.
Mm-hmm. And I notice your brush, you have a super sharp point. I have a rigger, which I quite often try to use for tiny detail, but
right,
using your sharp pointed round, I gotta get better brushes.
Yeah, those,
you did so much with that little brush.
Riggers, I use riggers when I do telephone wires, but these, again, the brand is Escoda, E-S-C-O-D-A, Escoda, and the model is called Perla, P-E-R-L-A. They're from Spain. All the big boys use them, and they hold that point so well for a long time. Now, in the video, I said I lost the point on that 16. They eventually do give way, and when they do, you really should get rid of them and get a new one, because that point it's all about that point. So.
Yeah. You had a 16, and was the other one an 8 or a 6?
Oh, I don't know what it was. Let's see. I have them all from like 6 to 20. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I just.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, if I decide to get a good round, maybe get like 1 or 2. So maybe a small and a large. Just experiment.
Well, because of these points, you can get a 12, and you'll be amazed how fine a point you can get, yet you still have enough body in the ferrule to actually, do some bigger washes. So
Yeah, yeah. You kept going and going and going, and I thought, man, that held a lot of paint.
Yeah, they do. They do. It's sort of those mops. Have you ever used a mop?
Yeah, I do have a mop. I had originally used like a 1-inch flat, and I took a workshop, and the demo, he did his whole sky without getting more paint. I says, why am I having a problem with my 1-inch? He says, well, it's all synthetic, and you got to run out of paint 10 times faster than I will. And I realized it's a lot of times you got the technique, but you got lousy equipment.
Well, that's true. The natural hair does hold more pigment and more water, but I have no trouble with these synthetics. They're great. I
Okay.
go right along. So
Now, this Escoda, is it a synthetic or is it a mixture?
it's synthetic, and I get them through Blix. You can get them on Amazon, but they come from England. If you go to Blix, they'll just come. They'll come right here on UPS.
Okay. Okay.
I
Sounds
don't.
good.
I doubt they have them in the store, so don't schlep down to Providence to think you're going to find them. Go
Okay.
online and order them online from Blix.
Really appreciate you doing this. This is fantastic.
I really appreciate being asked and love your enthusiasm. Thanks a lot. So
You are having a workshop, isn't it, coming up with another club?
I'm having, let's see, the Taunton Art Club. I'm doing 3 Saturdays in May. Then in June, I'm with the Portsmouth Art Group. I'm doing Wickford and probably Newport, a 2-day. When is that? I don't remember when that is. Hold on. It's in June. It's through the Portsmouth Art. Yeah, it's June 16th and 17th. With
Wait a second, June 16 and 17?
Yep. 16,
Okay.
17 with a rain date of the 18th. And I
And
know.
is the Taunton, is it online or is it with Zoom, or are you actually doing a?
Taunton, I'm going there to their clubhouse and doing it there.
Okay.
As of
Thank
right
you.
now, I am. So
What's the date of the May one in Taunton?
May is, hold on. It's the 3 Saturdays. It's I haven't written it down yet. Oh,
That's okay. That's okay. I can maybe pull it up on the internet. In case.
Should try the Taunton Art Association. It should come up.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're
Really enjoyed this.
great. Good. Anybody else, anything or?
Laura, any questions?
No.
I was really, really impressed at how you drew that all freehand, just glancing over at the source photo and getting all the church lines so perfect.
Oh, thanks.
You said people would get bored watching the drawing, but I was just mesmerized by the drawing part.
Well, a lot of it is, here, I have a back scratcher here. I'll use this. A lot of it is looking at those angles and keeping your, looking at it in real life and keeping your wrist stiff so you can pull that angle right down to your paper. And so you get the angles right. It's the relationships. Remember, you've seen artists, I don't know if you can see me, but
Yep.
how they hold up a pencil and measure things. That's very important to know that, here, I'm going to use my mouse, to know that the width of this steeple is, let's say, I'm going to guess here, is twice as big as this one, and yet twice as small as the rest of that. All those things are very, very important for drawing. And then unfortunately, I've seen a lot of what are trying to be realism paintings that just aren't drawn well. They're maybe painted well, but they're not drawn really well. So practice, sketching and drawing anytime you can is very helpful. There's really, really good guy in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. His name is Gareth Jones. And on Instagram, he's, you know what? I'll tell you what he is. I was just looking for him the other day. He is, oh, it's not here. Yeah, he is. G-E-J Art. G-E-J Art.
Okay.
Gareth Jones. He does a lot of plein air street scenes. He uses gouache And his drawings, wow, his drawing skill is amazing. So someone to idolize for sure.
So Bill, would you recommend then people to do urban sketching to get more proficient as far as doing buildings and that type of thing? I mean, we were fortunate to have Laura come out from Boston and do one for us that was, you know, I embraced drawing the building as much as I abhorred it. But that, I mean, it's a newfound respect. It's a challenge, you know, it's like, I will conquer this type of thing.
Well, if you have the opportunity to at least go outside and sketch, you will learn so much more about perspective and buildings and stuff. We paint from photos, we all do, I do, we can't help it. But we become slaves to the photo. You really need to step back and use the photo as a guide. As a matter of fact, I watched myself on this video and I kept looking over at that image and looking and looking. And once I had it drawn, I should have just turned the image off and painted it. It probably would be a better painting if I hadn't looked at the image so much. But that said, when you go outside, you really learn, you will learn to teach yourself how to see. And that's the key. It's seeing where our heads are. In other words, when you're standing, then that's your eye level is really the horizon. No matter what it is, it's the horizon. And if we're in a city scene, I'm going to use my mouse again. Okay, so I'm pretty much this tall right here. So everyone's heads are pretty much in line with me because that's what I'm seeing. So this guy over here, he's shorter because he's further away, where this guy is tall because he's closer to me, you know. And seeing the relationships of these perspective lines that come down and how they converge to the horizon line, and it just goes on and on and on. So, you know, the other thing I didn't talk about much in this, and I'm sorry I didn't, is value. Value is king. The values are so important to a painting. I just read something in Plein Air magazine. He was saying that value is the heavy lifter, but color gets all the credit, which is true. And as I look at my painting, I'm going back to the mouse. This building is too light. It should be darker. And I kept saying that during the video. And now I look at it, I'm like, at least down in here, it should be much darker. So I may go over that again. But with watercolor, you can glaze, you can do that one more, just, you know, baby steps, one more. The key to watercolor is that you only want to brush over it once. In other words, I'm back at the mouse. If I want to make it this darker, I want to brush over that once, because if I go over twice, then I'm going to start picking up all these branches and stuff and they'll all smear. So you can do it once, but you can't do it twice. So do it once, let it dry. And then if you need to make it even darker, you can do it again. But it's that drying that's so important.
Well, I think that's part of what really helped about you doing a video versus trying to do it live, because you had all those drying points in there so that you could keep going forward.
Right. Yes. Good. Because the other thing is, I don't know how I was going to do this with my computer here and I paint over there. So I'm like, I don't know how you're going to see this. So I went in, I filmed myself, and then I went in iMovie and edited it and tried to. I'm going to tell you right now, the hardest part is marrying the palette with the video. Let me, oh man. Woo. But anyway, I digress.
Well, as much as you enjoy doing these live, I really appreciated having a giant screen in front of me that I could really stare closely at and see exactly what you were doing. Because if we do live demos, often the person who's presenting is like way across the room and I can barely tell what they're up to.
Right. Actually, when I was during the video, when I was doing the taxi cab, one of you were like leaning into your screen trying to see it. And I thought, oh, I should have blown that up so you could see it better. So sorry about that. Yeah.
I don't have a big screen, sorry. The laptop.
Oh, okay. Can't help you then. Sorry.
That's okay.
But it's such an amazing painting, and I love your, oh, it's too clean and it mess it up, and all of a sudden it's like, wow,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, thank you. It's really, as I mentioned in the video, it's a guy named Herman Peckel, one of his videos. I've never met him personally, but one of his videos, and he's in London. He's doing this painting. It's great. He said, you know, sometimes you just have to get mad. And he just takes a brush and goes right across. And, oh, it turned it into magic. It was amazing. So, you know, just I don't know. And it takes practice because, you know, you can do that and totally ruin it for good. But what the heck, if you don't try, you'll never learn. So anyway, good.
Now, you don't rely on the gouache that much, or and which you were using the Harding, or what were you using for your titanium white? What brand of paints?
Oh, that was M. Graham, and it was gouache. Yes.
Mhm.
I've tried the watercolor Chinese white, but I just like the gouache. It's really gloppy too, and you can't see it here, but it's like almost like oil paint. It's just a blop of white on there, and it really helps bring. Oh, I keep pointing at here. I'll get the mouse. Like on her right here. Those really help to bring her into the light and show that reflection on her jacket and stuff. So I do it. So a lot of the big names do it as well. And what the heck, you know, it's again, I wouldn't want to, back to this lady, I wouldn't want to try to paint all the background around that white. You'll be just so stuck doing that. You won't get a nice good flow of your painting. And it's just, it's too constrictive, so.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And just the whole large building on the right-hand side, how you did that, because I need to practice a looser architectural like that. And I just get so involved in how many windows am I counting, like you were saying, it was more the perspective, and
Right.
just let somebody else's eye fill in all the
Yeah.
blanks.
You want to make sure that all these perspective lines are correct. I'm trying to do the mouse correctly. I can't do it. But then when I should say me. I don't want to do every window where they're supposed to be, because then your viewer is going to look at that and not at what you're trying to say. You know, I've done a lot of buildings in Providence, and you do the Superman building. You really just want to get the shape of the building, and you want to get a few of those little architectural details, but not much, because it's not about that. It's about something else, you know, whatever the painting, unless your painting is about that building, then then maybe you do want to do that. So a lot of these superstars also talk a lot about what drew you to your subject, whether it's a photograph that you looked at and went, oh, wow, that's cool. Or you're outside and you're walking around and you finally see that view that really means something, and the light's right and all that. Well, as you do your painting, don't lose sight of that. What drew you there? And okay, and let me try to explain that even better. When you're outside, let's say we're in Wickford and we're painting boats, and the light was right, everything was right, and you start drawing, and then all of a sudden the tide goes out and the boats all change their, where they are in the water. Well, don't chase them. You got to do as you started and finish it. Excuse me, I have to cough. So one of the things, a key to plein air now that we have all this wonderful technology, is when you find that scene and you're really happy and you love the light and all that, take a picture of it on your phone. Because as you go along and the sun moves and the shadows change and that car goes and all that kind of stuff, you can refer back to your phone, that picture on your phone, to finish your painting, and you'll still get it. You'll get what you were trying to do.
Now, I noticed you had a couple pencil sketches along with your value study that you did.
Yes.
Do you?
Where are we? Here, there. I'll hold this up. I'm not sure you can see it. I'll try. Can you see that?
It is small. I think you'd have to stop sharing for a minute to be able to see that bigger.
Okay, well, if I stop sharing, I may not be able to come back.
I bet you can. I trust in the process.
Okay, so now how do I get me big?
Yep, so now we can set our screens to gallery view to be able, or speaker view, I mean. So if we put on speaker view, we can see you big.
All right, so I do a couple of thumbnails, and I just tried a horizon where I did my painting, and then I did a horizon low just to see what that would be like. I do thumbnails. Give me a second. I'm just going to flip to a different page. Do yourself a favor. Take the time to do. I'm trying to find a good example. Take the time. Can you see this?
Yep.
Yep.
Take the time to do little thumbnails with different horizon lines, horizontal, or it's not here, but a vertical. It's just a little pencil with shapes to try to determine which is the best composition. And as you do these, and you only need to do like 4 or 5, you'll know it. As soon as you do it, do the one, excuse me, as soon as you do the one that seems right, you'll know it. It speaks in volume. You'll just be like, that's it, that's the one. And then do your value sketch. I'll show you, hold on. Let me find a better value sketch than. Value sketches I do in one color, in usually ultramarine blue, and I just determine, it's my roadmap of where my darks and my lights are going to be, and it's invaluable while you're painting, especially plein air. If you have the time to do it, do it. A lot of times you don't have the time because you're chasing that light, or you're chasing the tide or the cars or the people or whatever. So, but the thumbnail is really important. So I would definitely push you to do those thumbnails.
Mm-hmm. And what draws you to using the ultramarine for your value study?
The ultramarine is a dark paint, so I can get darks and I can get lights. Let's say, okay, let's pretend I use cadmium yellow. Well, 100% cadmium yellow is still very light, so you won't see the darks and lights. So, ultramarine is probably the darkest color I have on my palette. I don't use black. I always make my own black, as you saw me making darks, usually with ultramarine and burnt sienna. Or another great way to make a black is to use a red and a green, and any complementary. So that dark perline green I have with alizarin crimson, makes this luscious black. It's, but it's not black. It has a little bit of color in it, and that's so important. I think it's so important. So.
Now, talk more about your palette and how now you prefer to keep your paints soft. Yes. As long as possible. Yes. Do you ever reconstitute them, or?
Oh yes. When I take the plastic off, when the air starts hitting it, they of course dry, so I have to wet them, and I'm constantly squirting new paint. Don't be afraid to squirt out fresh paint. Paint is only wasted if it's in the tube, and if anybody here says, oh, well, the paint is so expensive, it's like, well, then why are you painting? Don't paint then, because you'll never get those nice rich colors unless you have good wet paint ready to go. So and if you do that plein air workshop, that's something I talk about a lot, so you'll see it. So.
And that's the one in Taunton?
Taunton, and in the Taunton Art Association in May, and then the Portsmouth Art Association in June, the Wednesday and Thursday in June. Yes.
Okay. And then you were taping the 300 paper to your board? Is that how you always attach it? Is just tape all the way around and?
Yes, I do. I love painting on the board. I have a few blocks, you know what blocks are. But I find them very restrictive. There's something about having more white around that I just like, and I can, I can just paint right through it. Plus, which you couldn't see, hold on, I'll get it. I noticed in the video you couldn't see. Can you see this?
Yep.
All right, this is the painting. Up here, this is just a scrap piece of the same paper. And so a couple of times during the video, I'd say, oh, well, let me, like this color, I'd say, oh, let me see what it is. And it's right there. I paint it just to see what that color is before I actually put it down. Although, again, while it's wet, you can change it. But as soon as it dries, you can't, you're kind of stuck with it. So because I have a board, I can have this right next to me, so at all times. So. And I have it on both sides. I have another one right here. So.
And you said you were using arches, right?
Yes, I do, but I'm not. I mean, I use it because that's what I use. It's not like I love it. I mean, it's fine, but I've tried a few other brands and they seem fine too. I'm just stuck using this, so I guess I'm brand loyal, but I don't know why. So. Yeah.
Do you prefer the natural or the bright whites, or?
I've gone both ways, and I'm usually on the bright white. I mean, the subject I like to do is usually man-made and is harder and more metallic, so the bright white seems to work pretty well. But I've done nature on bright white. It works well as well. As usually I put that wash down anyway of let's say raw sienna, which just then that tones the paper. So.
And would you say that that's kind of your palette, the way that you did work this? Because
yes.
because I just the colors are, it just works so well. It's really nice.
I've used this palette for quite a while now, and I'm starting to get kind of sick of it. So I'm gonna get, like, I made there's quinacridone gold, which is a beautiful yellow. I've used that a couple of times, but we're creatures of habit. I always keep gravitating back, but I need to use a few different colors to see what that will do to my paintings. I won't stray from ultramarine. I won't stray from cobalt. Burnt sienna is that's my go-to color, and that's Windsor Newton burnt sienna. I have used M. Graham, and it's a totally different color. It's very red and got me into a lot of trouble. So, so for all of you, if watercolorists, get colors that you like. You don't have to buy every color they make. It can be a very simple palette, and then use those for a while to get used to them. And then you may determine that there's a one or two you really don't like, and then you can, switch them around and try something else. I struggle probably the most with that cerulean. That it works well, but I don't know. Sometimes I have a tough time with it. So I can't explain why. It's just a feeling I have with that color. So.
And are most of your pigments the Windsor Newton, or they've kind of morphed into other?
No, they're mostly Windsor Newton. That leaf green is not, I think it's Holbein. It's not made by Windsor Newton. That leaf, excuse me, leaf, as in trees, leaf. That leaf green is wonderful. Man, that's a great green. I used to always mix my greens, and they were always real yucky and dull. And then I found this leaf green, and it's amazing. And then I found this perline green, which is a dark green, and it is amazing. So now I can mix, and I do, but I don't have to, and it works. I really like it. I've tried other. Stay away from Viridian. Well, okay, for me, woohoo! Viridian in watercolor will kill me. It's just but yet Viridian in oil is the most wonderful color. So, and speaking of Richard Schmid, he did a sky. He did his painting and he's doing a sky, and he used Viridian and white. And it is the most gorgeous. I've tried it, and it makes the most gorgeous sky, which is hard to believe. But anyway,
Huh.
I feel like I'm talking on too long here. So,
Oh, it's fascinating.
okay. All right, good. Anything
Oh,
else?
now everyone's scared to ask questions.
No, don't be, please. Are you kidding me?
Anyone else have any questions?
My head's ready to explode because I just got so much information in this one session. It's just amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this has been great.
I'm flattered. Thank you. Thank you again for inviting me. This is great. So, good.
Bev, Laura, any other questions?
No, one thing about, do you soak your paper ahead of time and let it dry to get the sizing out or not?
Nope, not at all. As a matter of
Not
fact,
at all.
the sizing, especially in, I'm looking at the paper down here as if it's talking to me. The sizing in Arches paper now is so much better than it used to be. I don't know how long you've been doing watercolor, but it used to stink. And no offense, Lisa, I see a cat walking around, but it smelled like cat pee. It was like, oh, man, totally different now. And you can paint on either side. There's no
That's right.
back anymore.
Okay.
Paper's great. No, I don't pre-soak it and I don't staple it to a board. I just tape it and use that.
Tape
so.
it. Okay, thank you.
And if you tape it, please use a neutral color, preferably white. I've seen students come in and have bright blue tape or
Carpenter
bright
tape.
tape, and it'll just throw you off. Your painting's not going to have that dark around it, and it just throws off your colors. So my suggestion to you. That's
Oh, it's great. Thank you so much.
okay. You're welcome.
Gotta have you again someday.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
thanks.
absolutely. That was wonderful.
Absolutely.
Thank you for
You
sharing
do.
your time with us and your expertise.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. All right.
Well,
Then-
I guess if there's no other questions, Carol Frieswick is the one who handles the money, so she'll make sure that you get paid. So,
Okay. I know her, so I'll
Okay.
thank her.
okay.
All right, great. Thank you all. Have a good
Hey,
evening.
thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Bill.
Thank
Have a
you,
good
Bill.
evening.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Lisa.
it. Bye, Bill.
Bye.
Bye.